Hello. How is everybody doing? How's the conference going? Yay, that's great. I'm so happy to see you and glad to see some familiar faces. I'm excited to welcome you to our session on how to navigate fulfillment options to maximize your profits. My name is Olga Rousey, and I am a senior product manager with Amazon's Seller Fulfilled Services. The favorite part of my work, and the large component of it, is actually learning about your business. I speak with you virtually and online. I survey you. You may get some of those surveys there from me, oftentimes. And I get to hear what you like and what you struggle with. But the favorite part of my work is hearing about your success and about your growth. The question we have at hand today is paramount for your success and growth. With that, I know it's not an easy question. So we're gonna approach it. Let's start by looking at a couple of sellers. We've got Alice and the pet beds. Most of her business, she actually utilizes for most of her business fulfillment by Amazon, and only some smaller portion of her business runs as fulfilled by merchant. Anybody here is more like Alice with most of their sales and fulfillment done with FBA? Raise your hand. Okay, thank you. So Alice wants to lower her costs, and she wonders whether expanding more of her business into fulfillment by merchant would help her do that. And what does she need to know to be fully prepared? And what does she need to have set up to make it run and actually deliver on her vision? On the other hand, we've got Tom. Tom primarily utilizes fulfillment by merchant, with only a couple of his listings fulfilled by Amazon. Anybody here is more like Tom with most of their business fulfilled by merchant? Wow, great. Thank you. Fantastic. So Tom is eager to grow the volume of his sales. And he's looking into fulfillment by Amazon or maybe Seller Fulfilled Prime. He's considering different options. And he's trying to figure out how, basically both of them actually are trying to figure out their equation. How much should go fulfilled by Amazon and how much should go fulfilled by merchant for maximum profit? It is not an easy question. And while most of you have answered it at least once before, I would argue that once is not enough. When there is a change in your supplier network, or maybe new carrier rates get published, or there's a new program or announcement on Amazon, you all ask, what does it mean for me, for my business? The answer lies in reevaluating your profitability. And I want all of you, by the end of the session today, by the end of our discussion, to walk away feeling a little bit more at ease with this question. We'll approach it from three primary components. One, product and business fit with fulfillment by Amazon and fulfillment by merchant. Two, analysis and what you need to know. And three is actually what you need to set up. It's time to introduce our speakers. I've invited some amazing experts for us today. Please welcome on stage. Take your seat. Let's give them a hand. So we have invited two seasoned Amazonians and two experienced sellers that utilize very different fulfillment models. Let us start with you, Jay. Tell me a little bit about you and your business, Providence Engraving.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jay Gerbasi, and I'm the owner of Providence Engraving, and we're a custom products manufacturer, and we've sold using the Merchant Fulfilled Network, or FBM, since 2013 on Amazon, and it's my pleasure to be a part of the discussion with you guys today.
Thank you. We're so excited to have you here. All right, Ben, to you. I know you utilize both fulfillment by Amazon and fulfillment by merchant for your business. Tell us a little bit about eChaps.
Absolutely. My name is Ben Chappell. I'm the CEO and president of eChaps. I started selling on Amazon over 9 years ago with my father. We are in the toys, games, and plush industry and are hoping to break into 8 figures of revenue this year, primarily about 96% being on Amazon FBA.
Wow, wonderful. Jessica, your team has been working extensively with sellers and fulfillment questions. Tell us about your role a little bit more and what do you expect to contribute to our discussion today?
Yeah, my name is Jessica Newcomb. I've been with Amazon for almost 6 years now, the entire time working with sellers, helping them strategize about their fulfillment optimizations. We work with sellers that are just launching on Amazon and trying to decide FBM or FBA. But we also work with some really tenured sellers that sell up to $50 million a year. So hopefully that lends me some expertise to speak to today.
I am sure. Ross, you've been with Amazon for 12 years. Tell me a little bit more about your work today.
Yeah, so hello everybody. Name is Ross Miller. Been with Amazon, like Olga said, for about 12 years now. I lead our Vico sales office out of Austin, Texas. Prior to that, had some initial stints with FBA recruitment, and then had an opportunity to explore our self-fulfilled Prime programs, small and light programs. I've been with Amazon seller growth initiatives as well, so I can almost guarantee, in fact, I can actually pick out a couple of faces that I kind of recognize. Some of you guys have probably got an email, voicemail, something like that from me, so we've probably exchanged over Zoom or had a seller conversation as well about growing your business.
Fantastic. So as you see, we have a wealth of expertise here. I'm excited about our discussion. Before we get started, I want you to pay attention to this QR code. We will have a Q&A session right at the end. So to submit questions, please scan this QR code, submit your question. You can also vote for others' questions, just like you would do for any sessions. So I think the Q&A panel is on the right, so submit some questions for us. All right, with no further ado, let us get started with the first question. Jessica, I'll direct this one to you.
Yeah.
Are there any rules of thumb of which products sell best with Fulfilled by Amazon and Fulfilled by Merchant?
Yeah, things that we talk about with sellers, the very first question we always ask sellers to evaluate is, do you have the fulfillment bandwidth to support fulfilling your orders yourself? FBA is a really good fit for sellers who haven't yet invested in their own fulfillment network or may not have the bandwidth to support shipping products out directly to customers. So that's the first thing we think about. Can you do it? Yes or no? If not, FBA is a great way to get started. Amazon handles it from beginning to end. But after that, we really would advise sellers to look at the specific products they sell. Products currently that need refrigeration, not currently a great fit for FBA. FBA doesn't support that currently. Other things like if a unit needs to ship in 2 boxes, but it's technically 1 ASIN, not a good fit for FBA either. I would also say that seasonal selection can be a good fit for FBA if you can monitor the types of depth of inventory you have. Seasonal selection sells really well in FBA because those are usually products that customers want really, really fast. But you gotta be careful not to send in too much or not to send in not enough. So those are good things for FBA. For FBM, there are things, I think, heavy, bulky. So things that are over 50 pounds, probably not as profitable on FBA as it could be for FBM. I would also say FBM is really good for products that you're testing out. You're not 100% sure yet if they're gonna have velocity. On the opposite side of that, products that do have high velocity, so that means to me 15 or 20 units a month, if you know they're a good seller on Amazon, those are great to make sure that you put into FBA. One of the biggest values that we see with the Prime Badge is the accelerant of sales that you get. On average, we think that you get anywhere from 20 to 25% increase of sales just because it has the Prime Badge. So my advice would be look at it product specific and also look at it often. It's not a set it and forget it type of thing. Seasonality comes into play, but then also the costs that you might have too can change throughout the year. So that's why I think it's always something to continuously look at.
Great point. All right, Ross, to you. I know most sellers take advantage of more than one fulfillment channel. what do you know from your experience that sets apart the most profitable ones?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think from an overall profitability standpoint, really what we see from some of our most successful sellers on Amazon, it's just this constant evaluation or commitment to evaluation, whether that be either FBA or MFN, and just exploration between the two. A lot of times you'll see, we especially see this like in a post-COVID environment where raw materials, there's price increases on raw materials. It's not necessarily like a static environment. It's very dynamic in that nature. So as you evaluate your business, certainly just have like some SOPs or best practices that you implement, kind of taking a look at, where are price points, are we being profitable within these channels? And if not, like, how can we pivot?
All right, that's a great segue to my next topic. Speaking about fulfillment decisions and analytics that drive this. Ben, tell us a little bit more about what helps you optimize what goes as fulfilled by Amazon and what goes fulfilled by merchant.
Absolutely. So just to preface this question, we are like 96% Amazon FBA. Being in the toy and game industry, it's highly competitive, and generally products have a lower margin. So volume and then being able to stay competitive both within listing and cross-listing is very important for us in our general business strategy. Now, that being said, even though FBA is a huge part of our business, there's still some very key areas that FBM comes in handy for us and kind of helps fluff out that business model and fill in any holes. One of those is just having a 2-week head start time on an FBA offer. So when you're completely sold out of a product and we get a new batch of inventory in from a supplier, we're able to get an offer up within 15 minutes versus having to wait the 2-week time for a supplier for the fulfillment center to receive and process that inventory. Another key area is just having a secondary offer underneath your Prime offer. There's still a lot of customers who do not have a Prime subscription, and so generally we're able to price match our Prime offer plus have a free shipping option. And for lower cost items that might not reach that $25 free shipping threshold for those non-subscriber customers, it's a great way to really convert on them. And then as Jessica said, just being able to test out more products without having to take such a big investment in sending in dozens or hundreds of SKUs to Amazon fulfillment centers.
Interesting. And tell me a little bit more. You've mentioned price matching. So how do the pricing considerations differ between fulfillment by Amazon and fulfillment by merchant products?
Yeah, generally, at least if you're above $9.99, we're able to price match with no issue. There's not a huge difference with our profit margins. Now, what is interesting is with Amazon FBA, there's a small and light program. So anything under $9.99, you get a fulfillment fee discount, but it kind of creates a dead area between that $9.99 price point and then an $11.99 price point, where you don't make any additional profit, but you are making it harder for a customer to make that purchase decision. Now with Amazon FBM, obviously there's no small and light program, and so for whatever reason, if you have a need to compete within that price point, it's a great option for that.
Interesting. And Jay, tell us, switching gears a little bit to the fulfillment by merchant, understanding costs of doing business and fulfillment by merchant, what are some of the unique aspects that you need to worry about?
Yeah, sure. I think really the simplicity of the FBM cost model is one of its great features. I would say in general, profit forecasting is a bit simpler in FBM than it is in FBA. Once you get your fulfillment operation up and running, I think your costs become a bit more of a static target than an FBA equivalent. So what are those fixed costs? In my business, which is really 100% FBM, we pay category-based referral fee, and then we're responsible to cover the cost of returns. So the two categories that we sell in both have a referral fee of 15%. But unfortunately, I'd love to say that my profit margin is the remainder, but that's unfortunately not the case, right? There's more to consider here. So since we've decided to fulfill these orders ourselves, we're going to bear that fulfillment cost that would otherwise be paid to Amazon. So really, what does that look like? From like a cost analysis standpoint, what's going to go into that equation is going to depend pretty heavily on your starting point. So are you a dropship business? Or do you already fulfill for some other off-Amazon sales channels? If you already have a fulfillment operation in place, obviously that's a great advantage. and you shouldn't expect to see yourself incurring a lot of cost by getting that up and running. If you're a drop shipper or a strictly FBA manufacturer to fulfillment center, then you're going to have to consider things like inventory storage. So do you have an operational footprint that will accommodate pulling back your inventory from fulfillment centers and keeping it on hand locally? That obviously can be a considerable expense if you have to relocate your business or you have to provide some sort of storage expansion to accommodate holding inventory. Another critical point, I think, is your staffing demands. So are you in the position to take on those day-to-day responsibilities of fulfillment, or is that going to require a major staffing expansion? And what would that cost tend to look like for your business? Another very important part of consideration here, because the more complex your operation gets, obviously the more cost that's going to stack on top of that referral fee that we pay to Amazon. And then another point that I want to touch on is Jessica mentioned that there's a 25% bump that you should expect to see when a listing transitions from FBM to FBA, just due to the consumer confidence that goes along with seeing that Amazon Prime badge. So I would say if you're looking to transition from FBA to FBM, you should also look pretty closely at your marketing plan. So is it robust enough now to accommodate some of the opportunity costs that you're going to incur when you make that transition? Or do you need to allocate additional budget into marketing prior to making that transition? So I hate to answer a question by asking you guys 5 or 6 questions, but this is all very unique to your business model. So I would say take some of these thoughts and try and apply them to what you do in your operation and how it works right now to really arrive at some apples to apples FBA versus FBM comparison for each of your unique operations.
Quite a lot to consider for sure. Jessica, what tools do you see sellers that they use to assess the profitability on FBA?
Yeah, I think there's a slew of tools that Seller Central offers, but if I could pick just a few, I would say the first one I would always recommend is the FBA revenue calculator. It's definitely improved over the last several years, so if you haven't taken a look, make sure to revisit that. That's going to show you your FBA fee. Keep in mind, fees specifically for FBA are 100% dependent upon the dimensions and the weight of your products. But the FBA revenue calculator will also show you inbounding cost. It'll also show you storage cost. It even has a really cool feature that allows you to put in your fulfillment cost so that you can kind of analyze the two of them. That's one that I think should be revisited often as well, especially as we're talking about different products may change, your cost may change. And then the second one that I really appreciate and we see a lot of sellers utilize often is the FBA opportunities page. That's going to specifically show you what products you currently have in MFN or FBM, but yet Amazon thinks you'll get a good enough uplift of sales that it's worth maybe the additional cost of putting it in FBA. The other aspect that I really like, it shows you how many other offers are on that ASIN. And then it also will show you if that ASIN specifically could take advantage of what we call the new selection promotion. So fees, discounts, kind of a risk-free way of trying FBA. And all of that can be found in the FBA opportunities dashboard.
Wow, interesting. So can you use that dashboard to assess seller fulfilled Prime uplift as well, or is it specific to FBA?
No, it's a great tool to use for Prime offers, right? And so it'll show you if they're, for this ASIN specifically, let's say there may be 2 other offers, but they're not Prime. Prime doesn't matter if it's FBA or SFP, so that's a great tool to utilize for that as well.
All right, and Ross, when you work with the multi-channel sellers, what do you see them use when they conduct data analysis across all of their fulfillment channels?
Yeah, so historically, I think what we've seen within that landscape is there's kind of 2 methods. One is utilize a third party, give them access to your data, your channels, those sorts of things. You typically pay them an exorbitant amount of money, either monthly or yearly. Or the second piece is, kind of craft your own, come up with a very elaborated Excel spreadsheet, that is very dependent on incorrect formulas and has, dependencies for errors that you see upstream, and you're spending hours, late at night, kind of go over these things, trying to just figure out if you're actually making money, right? So it's a challenge that we've seen, and certainly, one that we've heard from sellers. I think, with the announcement today, I think there's certainly an increased opportunity for the Veeco Profit Analyzer, which, if you're a merchant fulfilled seller yourself, you certainly can launch on a Veeco, which is a completely free Amazon-owned product. And then from that standpoint, you can just operate your business and let Amazon and Veeco really kind of take over, examine those channels. You can input your cost of goods sold in certain inputs as well. And then it's going to give you a visual representation within that channel of how much you made.
So does it go by channel, or does it? What is the granularity of that analysis?
Yeah, so you can drill it all the way down to the SKU level. Additionally, you can kind of extrapolate it. You can kind of change the time frames. You can go back to year to date, month to date, last month, those sort of things. So it gives you a good snapshot into really your profitability.
All right, and that is not unique to just Amazon orders, is that right? It's pretty much anywhere you sell.
Yeah, so you can do that
Veeco.
across multiple channels. So eBay, Etsy, Walmart, Shopify, Amazon, anything that Veeco connects to.
All right, great tool, new, just announced today.
Yeah.
I've been watching that on the
Exciting.
general session. I hope you all heard that. And Veeco does have a booth. I think it's 309. 309. Stop by to see it in person and play with it a little bit. So let us now switch gears to the setup that's required to actually deliver on your vision. So you've decided that you're expanding into FBA or FBM. What do you do next to make sure you actually deliver and you are profitable? Jay, let me start with you. So sellers that consider expanding into fulfillment by merchant, what do you think about the solutions, processes, and metrics that are helpful to keep an eye on to make sure that part is ready?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first thing that I would advise people to consider is running the cost analysis that we talked about earlier to see if it makes financial sense for your business to transition from FBA over to FBM. If that is the case, the way that I like to approach this is to imagine what I want the fulfillment experience to look like from my customer's perspective, and then tailor my strategy around that. So Amazon Prime, I think we'd all agree, is really the industry benchmark in e-commerce for fulfillment experience, right? And if you transition from FBA over to FBM, then all of your ASINs are now going to be, of course, competing against Amazon Prime offers. So what does that mean to us as an FBM seller? That means you're competing against same-day or often next-day delivery. You're competing against 24/7 customer service, really streamlined return process, some category-specific benefits like try before you buy, et cetera. So there's a lot going on in Prime that we have to compete with as merchant-fulfilled sellers. But the good news is that Amazon's provided us with some really nice tools over the last few years that I've deployed in my business to assist in competing in that environment. So the first couple that I'll mention are shipping settings automation and automated handling time. So since we rolled these out, they really have assisted us in reducing our promised delivery date. And what I've learned along the way is for each day that you reduce your promised delivery date or that promise gap, you can expect to see a 6% increase in conversion rate. So from an efficiency standpoint, that is absolutely huge. So the faster you can get those orders to the customer, obviously the better if you're competing against Prime offers in your category. Secondly, we have Amazon Buy Shipping. So Ross and the Veeco team do a great job of integrating that into their solution. And what that does for me as a merchant-fulfilled seller is it's going to protect my performance metrics against delivery-related A to Z claims and negative feedback associated with delivery. As we probably all know here, regardless which side of the fence you sell on, those performance metrics are critically important for your search visibility and organic ranking, right? And then I think we have some really good analytical tools at our disposal in Seller Central as well, like the merchant,
Fulfillment Insight Dashboard.
Yeah, the Fulfillment Insight Dashboard, excuse me. So the Fulfillment Insight Dashboard, as a merchant-fulfilled seller, is going to give you some insight into whether your operation is under-promising and over-delivering, which might sound like a good thing, but really this ties back into your conversion rate. You want that gap to be absolutely as small as possible. So you don't want to deliver orders to customers early. You'd prefer that they're there directly on time. So those analytical tools are quite helpful. I really recommend sellers spend some time in your account health dashboard for the reasons that we talked about before, and for the organic lift that it'll provide and when you keep those metrics optimized. And then finally, if you're making the transition, I think it's important to circle back and try and validate the success of your effort. And I think the best place to do that following a major transition like this would be in the voice of the customer dashboard, because all of that consumer review data and feedback data is aggregated in one convenient place to prevent you from having to go and mine that page by page.
Thank you. Wow, that's quite a list of tools. When it comes to FBA, I know, Ben, you've mentioned that you're working with really small margins. How do you optimize for efficiency?
Yeah, so it is incredibly important for us to take control of our margins. And quite frankly, the best way to take control is to truly know your margins from the top down. Some software we use personally to view our margins is also the Amazon Revenue Calculator. We are in there very, very often, always comparing. Same thing with the Amazon SKU Economics. I found that one also adapts very well once you get some good seller history in there. It also adds in, your advertising costs, return expenses, return fees, and so it gives us some really good totals to work with. And then also, off of what Ross was saying, the Veeco Profit Analyzer cross-platform is very helpful just to get a good top-down view across our marketplaces and to make necessary adjustments when needed. Another thing we've instilled into our company is we've measured how long it takes us to process each one of our SKUs individually, some of our workers. And so that way we know our exact labor costs per SKU. And it also tells us how many hours of inventory we have on hand at the warehouse, how many hours on order. And so maybe we need to order more, make sure our workers have something to do. Or especially during this season, we know, hey, I think it's time to hire some temporary workers. The Christmas rush is coming. Let's prepare for that. So it gives us some really good data to work with. And then one other way we're able to adjust our profits is by repricing. We are in there very, very often, constantly adjusting our pricing. We're almost day trading with our products. And just those 10 to 20, 30 cent differences across 700,000 units in the last 12 months, it really makes a big impact on your top-down numbers.
Great point. Jessica, what do you see sellers set up and monitor just to succeed on Amazon? What are some of the most critical things to keep an eye on?
Yeah, especially for FBA, we really put a lot of focus in the inventory Inventory Performance Index. There you go. The IPI score, you may be familiar with it. Think of that as like your FBA credit score. That's going to tell you if you have the right amount of inventory, whether you have too much or too little, whether your sell-through was great on these products or not. Maybe these are products that should probably move to FBM. That seller score for your IPI is also going to be critical for promotions. The promotion I mentioned earlier, the new selection promotion, you do have to have a certain threshold of that score. So it's really important to keep that score as high as you can. I also say the restock inventory dashboard, critical. That's going to make sure that you have the right amount of inventory to keep up with customer demand. I'd also say one cool part of that tool is you can set replenishment alerts. Let's say you usually sell 100 units a month and you know that you need 3 weeks lead time to inbound that in to be available. You can actually set that lead time in that restock inventory report, so it'll send you an alert when one specific SKU or ASIN is out of stock or getting closer to that timeline. Those are things, along with the SKU economics, I think is really critical as well. Those are some things that some of the most successful sellers really lean into.
Perfect. And Ross, do you have anything to add on monitoring fulfilled by merchant business as we wrap up this part of our discussion?
Yeah. I would say from a holistic perspective, just realize the Amazon tools that are available to you as a seller. So to Jay's point, taking a look at shipping setting automation, automated handling time, like understanding how those actually impact the listing and can correlate instead of cost controls, but correlate more into increasing your sales. So I think just adoption of those tools and how they flow through, not only the Amazon listing, but also how they can impact your business is crucial. Yeah, so that's what I'd add.
Can I add one more for
Sure.
FBM that I forgot? The Fulfillment Insight Dashboard that you mentioned, critical for your FBM business. I loved how you said that some sellers think that padding of delivery is kind of a good thing to have. We actually see it the opposite, especially if you want to be competitive in FBM with FBA Prime offers, making sure that, like Jay mentioned, you get your promise gap as close to zero or half a day as possible. That's really going to be a key aspect to keep visiting. It's also going to help your on-time delivery rate to keep monitoring that as well.
Great. I hope you all kept the list. If you didn't, let us summarize. So both Alice, Tom, and all of you can take advantage of all of these tools we've mentioned and the approaches. So we talked about FBA Revenue Calculator and FBA/SFP Opportunity Dashboard when you're doing your planning. We talked about Vico Profit Analyzer that can help with that part as well. We talked about some important tools to have in place, automation tools for your FBM business. We talked about SKU economics and the IPI score to make sure you are monitoring the current performance, as well as the Fulfillment Insight Dashboard, because in FBM, it keeps you busy differently than the FBA. You have to keep an eye on your performance and your success. All right, with that, I'll only add a couple of, quick points. Know your options and how they differ, and don't shy away from reassessing them. Do it as many times as you need. Do it regularly because profitability does change as the market changes. And finally, automate as many processes as you can so you can focus on the strategic component of your business.